inside. She may look like an overaged tub on the outside, but don't let that fool you. She's got power, mister. She's probably the fastest thing this side of the Jovian moons, except for those experimental one-man rocket bombs down at Neptune Station. But chasing a big tub in a one-man spacebound coffin? Here, Pitchblende used the vernacular for the tiny one-man experimental ships. Ain't going to do anybody any good. Best thing you can do is track Mozart's lady by radar and hope she'll head sunward. Then they could intercept her closer in. But Mozart's lady did not head sunward. Radar tracking confirmed this moments later. Mozart's lady was outward bound for Pluto's orbit. And with Pluto and Neptune currently in conjunction, that could even mean a landing, although the police decided that wasn't likely. There were no settlements on Pluto. Pluto was too weird. For the strangest reason in a solar system and a galaxy of wonders, Pluto was quite uninhabitable. More likely, Mozart's lady would follow Pluto's orbit around, then make a dash sunward. The radar officer threw up his hands. "I give up," he said. "She's heading for Pluto's orb, all right. Call Neptune Station." "Neptune Station, sir?" "You bet. This job's too big for me. The brass will want to handle it." Seconds later, subspace crackled with energy as the call was put through from Triton City to Neptune Station. Whatever else history would write about him, it would certainly call Johnny Mayhem the strangest and literally most death-defying test pilot in history. Of course, testing the sleek, experimental beauties out of Neptune Station and elsewhere wasn't Mayhem's chief occupation. He was, in a phrase, a troubleshooter for the Galactic League. Whenever he had a spare few weeks, having completed an assignment ahead of schedule in his latest of bodies, he was likely to turn up at some testing station or other and volunteer for work. He was never turned down, although the Galactic League didn't approve. Mayhem was probably the galaxy's best pilot, with incredible reflexes and an utter indifference toward death. For the past 2 weeks, having completed what turned out to be an easier-than-expected assignment on Neptune, he had been piloting the spacebound coffins out of Neptune Station, and with very satisfactory experimental results. A few minutes ago he had been called into the station director's office, but when he entered he was surprised to see the Galactic League Firstman of Neptune waiting for him. "Surprised, eh?" the Firstman demanded. "I'll bet you want me to quit test flying," Mayhem said with a smile, which, clearer than words, told the Firstman his advice would be rejected. The Firstman smiled too. "Why, no, Mayhem. As a matter of fact, I want you to take one of the coffins into deep space." "Maybe something's wrong with my hearing," Mayhem said. "No, you heard it right. Of course, it's up to you. Everything you do, you volunteer." "Let's hear it, Firstman." So, the Firstman of Neptune told Johnny Mayhem about Mozart's lady, which, 6 hours ago, had left Triton for Pluto's orbit with an eccentric wealthy widow, 100 girls, and a desperate escaped killer. "The only thing we have out here fast enough to overtake them, Mayhem, is the one-man coffins. The only man we have who can fly them is you. What do you say?" Mayhem's answer was a question, but the question didn't really require an answer. Mayhem asked, "What are we waiting for?" The Firstman grinned. He had expected such an answer, of course. The whole galaxy, let alone the solar system, knew the Mayhem legend. Every world which had an Earthman population and a Galactic League post, however small, had a body in cold storage, waiting for Johnny Mayhem if his services were required. But of course, no one knew precisely when Mayhem's services might be required. No one knew exactly under what circumstances the Galactic League Council, operating from the hub of the galaxy, might summon Mayhem. And only a very few people, including those at the hub, and the Galactic League firstmen on civilized worlds and observers on primitive worlds knew the precise mechanics of Mayhem's coming. Johnny Mayhem, a bodiless sentience. Mayhem, Johnny Marlowe then, who had been chased from Earth, a pariah and a criminal 8 years ago, and who had been mortally wounded on a wild planet deep within the Sagittarian swarm, whose life had been saved, after a fashion, by the white magic of that planet. Mayhem, doomed now to possible immortality as a bodiless sentience. And Elan, which could occupy and activate a corpse if it had been frozen properly. And Elan doomed to wander eternally because it could not remain in one body for more than a month without body and Elan perishing. Mayhem, who had dedicated his strange, lonely life to the service of the Galactic League, because a normal life and normal social relations were not possible for him. "One thing, Mayhem," the Firstman said, now on Neptune. "How much longer have you in that body of yours?" 5 days, possibly 6. "That doesn't give you much time. If you're caught out there when your month is up, I won't be. We're wasting time talking about it. It would mean your death. Then let's get started." The Firstman stared at him levelly. "You're a brave man, Mayhem." "Let's say I'm not afraid to die. I've been a living dead man for 8 years. Come on." One of the so-called coffins, a tiny one-man ship, barely big enough for a prone man, food concentrates and water, was already waiting at the station space field. 10 minutes after hearing about Mozart's lady, without fanfare, Mayhem blasted off in pursuit. Maintaining top speed all the way, House Bartok brought Mozart's lady across almost 2 billion miles of space, from Neptune's to Pluto's orbit in 3 days. He was delighted with the speed. It would have taken the average space tub 10 days to 2 weeks, and since, as far as Bartok knew, there were nothing but average space tubs on Neptune, that gave him a considerable head start. It was Jane Cummings, first violin, who discovered Bartok's identity. Bartok was studying the star map at the time, and considered himself safe from discovery because he kept the control door of Mozart's lady locked. However, Jane Cummings had established something of a liaison with the pilot, outward bound from Earth and Mars, so she had been given a spare key which she'd kept, secretly, all the time the symphony was on Triton. Now, curious about the new pilot, for the same reason that the miners on Triton had been curious about the symphony, Jane made her way forward, inserted her key in the lock, and pushed open the control door. "Hello there," she said. House Bartok whirled. The turning of a key in the lock had so unnerved him, it was the last thing he expected, that he forgot to shut off the star map. Its telltale evidence glowed on the wall over his head. "What do you want?" he managed to ask politely. "Oh, just to say hello." "You already said it." Jane Cummings pouted. "You needn't bite my head off. What's your name? Mine's Jane, and I play the violin. It wouldn't hurt you to be polite." Bartok nodded, deciding that a little small talk wouldn't hurt if he kept the girl from becoming suspicious. That was suddenly important. If this girl had a key to the control room, for all he knew, there could be others. "My, you have been hurrying," Jane said. "I could tell by the acceleration. You must be trying to break the speed records or something. I'll bet we're almost to Earth." Her voice trailed off, and her mouth hung open. At first, Bartok didn't know what was the matter. Then he saw where she was staring. The star map. "We're not heading for Earth," she cried. Bartok walked toward her. "Give me that key," he said. "You're going to have to stay here with me. Give me that key." Jane backed away. You You couldn't be our pilot.